The Forbidden Glance, HFY sci-fi story. The twin moons of Varela hung low above the Silver Palace, their light spilling through crystal corridors where human workers moved quietly under alien command. Among them was Eli Cross, a young human engineer who had been sent from Earth to maintain the palace energy systems. He was careful, silent, and humble, for the Ilari nobles had rules. Too many rules, one of them said. Humans must never look upon an Ilari during the time of change. Eli never understood why, but he followed every command, because one mistake here could mean exile or death. His main task was to repair broken light conduits in the royal wing, and that was where he met Lyra, the alien maid who worked for the princess herself. Lyra was unlike anyone Eli had seen. Her skin shimmered faintly like liquid glass, her eyes deep blue like frozen oceans, and her voice calm, soft, and full of mystery. She rarely spoke to humans, but to Eli she sometimes offered a quiet smile, a small kindness in a cold palace. The guards often joked that she was too gentle for her kind, but Eli sensed something deeper, a sadness behind her calm expression. One evening, the upper chamber lights flickered violently, releasing sharp bursts of static energy that filled the air with ozone. Lyra called for Eli through the intercom, her voice trembling slightly. "Human engineer, the chamber lights are unstable again. Please come quickly." Eli grabbed his repair kit and rushed through the glowing corridors. He arrived at her quarters, a large room lined with transparent crystal panels, filled with warm blue light that danced like underwater fire. Lyra stood near the center, her hands pressed together, her breathing uneven, her body trembling as energy rippled through her form. "Please fix it quickly," she whispered. "The pulse will start soon." Eli nodded and moved toward the control wall, his eyes scanning the glowing conduits. He worked fast, adjusting the power stabilizer, but the lights flashed again, brighter than before, flooding the chamber with pure white energy. He covered his eyes, but through the glare he saw something he should never have seen. Lyra's body began to change, her form glowing with radiant lines, her silhouette shifting, the outlines of her being rewriting themselves like living light. It wasn't pain. It was transformation, something beautiful, sacred, and strange. Her silver hair floated upward as if carried by invisible waves. Her skin turned to liquid crystal, showing the pulse of energy beneath. Eli froze, unable to move. His breath caught in his chest. She turned her head slowly, her voice soft but full of warning. "Humans don't look when I change," she said, her tone neither angry nor afraid, just ancient. But Eli couldn't look away. It wasn't desire. It was awe, like watching a star being born before his eyes. The lights roared, the air thickened, and the energy between them began to twist, forming threads of light that connected his hands to hers. Eli stumbled backward, feeling something inside him pull tight, a warmth flooding his veins. The crystal panels flickered red, the system detecting a biological link. Lyra gasped, eyes wide. "No, this cannot happen. You are human." The chamber's energy core reacted violently, sending shockwaves through the floor. Eli fell to his knees, clutching his chest as a strange rhythm pounded in his head, her heartbeat echoing inside his mind. He saw flashes, visions, stars, ancient ruins, two figures, one human, one Ilari, standing together before a burning sky. When the light finally dimmed, the room was silent. Eli looked up, trembling, and saw Lyra staring at him, her transformation incomplete, her face glowing faintly. "You looked," she whispered, "and now the bond has chosen you." Eli tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "What bond? What happened to me?" Lyra stepped closer, her eyes glowing with strange sadness. "It is called the thread of origin," she said quietly. "It links the soul of a human and an Ilari as they once were, before the war, before the separation." He shook his head in disbelief. "That's not possible. We never met before." Her gaze deepened. "You are wrong, human. Our species met long before your history began." Suddenly, alarms echoed through the palace halls. Red lights flashing against the crystal walls, Lyra's expression turned to fear. "They felt it. The council will know what we did." Eli stood quickly. "We didn't do anything. It was an accident." But she grabbed his arm, her touch burning like static fire. "No accident. The bond is alive now. It will grow. It will reveal everything they buried." "Then tell me how to stop it," he said. Heart pounding, she looked down, shaking her head slowly. "You cannot stop what has already chosen you." Outside, Footsteps echoed. Armored guards shouting orders as doors sealed shut. Lyra turned toward the back corridor, whispering fast. There's a hidden path. Follow me. Eli hesitated, confused and scared, but the look in her eyes told him the truth. If they stayed, they would both die. They ran through the corridor as alarm screamed, energy surges shaking the walls behind them. The chamber exploded in a surge of white light, the same color that now glowed faintly in Eli's veins. Lyra led him into a maintenance tunnel. Her movements quick and graceful, she whispered. The Alari never forgive bonds between our kind and yours. If they find you, they will erase you. Eli's breath came fast. Then why help me? For a moment her face softened and she said quietly, because you didn't look away. The tunnel lights flickered as the palace systems tried to stabilize. And far above, the council's ships began to circle the sky. The bond between them pulsed again, faint but alive, glowing through their skin like shared heartbeat light. Eli didn't understand what fate had chosen for him. But one thing was clear. The moment he saw her change, his life would never be the same again. The hidden tunnel stretched endlessly beneath the Silver Palace, walls glowing faintly with blue veins of power. Eli followed Lyra through the narrow path, his heart racing, his breath uneven, the strange warmth inside his chest pulsing with every step. He didn't understand what was happening, but he felt her presence in his mind. Faint emotions, flashes of fear, sadness, and something else, something ancient. When she stumbled, he caught her arm, and for a moment the bond flared again, their hearts beating in sync like twin drums. Lyra pulled away quickly, whispering, "Do not touch me. It will grow stronger." Eli frowned. "You mean this? Connection?" She nodded, her voice low. "The thread of origin. It links what should never be linked." They reached an old service room, long abandoned, filled with dusty consoles and cracked energy cells. Lyra sealed the door behind them and leaned against the wall, glowing faintly in the dim light. Eli could see that she was shaking, not from fear alone, but from exhaustion. Her transformation had not completed. He moved closer, careful but worried. "You're hurt." She shook her head. "No, the bond drains energy. It feeds on balance if we stay too close. It will consume us both." Eli looked at his hands, seeing faint blue lines beneath the skin. Like living light moving through his veins, he whispered, "What is this? Why me?" Lyra's eyes softened with pity. "Because you looked, because your heart did not fear my change." Her words carried both sorrow and wonder. Eli tried to laugh, though his voice trembled. "So I broke a rule and now the universe wants to kill me." Lyra tilted her head slightly, the shadow of a smile touching her lips. "You speak lightly, but this is no small thing. Human," she explained slowly. "Thousands of years ago, before your kind knew the stars, our ancestors met yours. Together they created the first bridges between worlds. They shared thought, language, and heart." Eli listened, confused. "Then what happened?" Her eyes dimmed. "The Great Divide, our rulers feared the emotion of your kind. They said human love was chaos, that it made us weak. They erased the records, banned contact, and declared your species primitive." Eli clenched his fists, anger rising. "So they rewrote history just to keep you all apart?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. And now our bond is a crime that cannot exist." The air around them shimmered again, a low hum vibrating through the metal floor. Lyra turned sharply. "They are tracing the link. The council can feel when the threat awakens." Eli moved toward the old console, his engineering instincts taking over. "Then I'll block it. Maybe I can jam the signal." He opened the panel, wires glowing faintly, his hands working fast, guided by instinct and something more. Lyra watched him with disbelief. "How do you know our tech?" "This is Alari design." Eli paused, realizing his mind seemed to remember things he never learned. "I don't know, it just feels familiar." The machine sparked and hissed. The hum faded and the light on the wall turned dark. Lyra looked amazed. "You did it." "The trace is gone, for now." Eli sat back, breathing hard. "Then we're safe." She shook her head slowly. "Safe is not a word that exists for us anymore." The bond pulsed again, a soft glow between them, filling the room with faint golden mist. Lyra's voice softened. "Can you feel it, human?" "My thoughts are brushing yours." Eli closed his eyes, feeling strange warmth spread through his chest. And then he heard her voice inside his mind. Not as words, but as feelings. He felt her fear, her loneliness, her longing for freedom. And she felt his confusion, his courage. and his strange calm in the face of danger. They both gasped at once, their minds touching like two sparks meeting in the dark. Lyra stumbled backward, pressing her hand to her chest. No, this cannot happen. The threat is evolving.
It's merging us.
Eli took a step closer. Then tell me how to control it. Her eyes shimmered. Control? No one ever has. When the bond chooses, it writes its own destiny. He frowned. So we're just supposed to accept it? She looked at him for a long moment, her voice barely a whisper. Sometimes acceptance is the only rebellion left. Outside, distant tremors shook the palace foundations, the echo of ships taking flight. Lyra turned toward a hidden panel and opened a path leading downward into the planet's undercity. Eli followed, the metallic air heavy with dust and forgotten history. They descended through layers of tunnels until they reached a massive cavern filled with ancient statues, half human, half Alari, carved together. Eli stared in shock. What is this place? Lyra's eyes glowed softly. The archive of unity, the last memory of what our races once were. She walked toward a broken monument and touched the stone, symbols lit up, ancient writing glowing beneath her fingers. Eli felt the same words burning behind his eyes. He could read them even though they weren't human language. He whispered the phrase aloud. The bond will return when heart meets light. Lyra turned to him in disbelief. Only the marked can speak the first tongue. Eli looked confused. The what? Her voice trembled. The language of those who built the first alliance, the language of the starborn. Before he could answer, the cavern lights flickered red, alarms echoing through the tunnels. Lyra's face turned pale. They found us again. Eli clenched his jaw. Then we run. But she grabbed his arm, shaking her head. No, if we keep running, they will hunt us forever. You must understand what you are, Eli. He stared into her glowing eyes. And what am I? Lyra hesitated, her voice breaking with awe and fear. You are not just human anymore, she whispered. You are the key the stars have been waiting for. The walls trembled, dust raining from the ceiling, and far above, the echo of approaching ships filled the sky. Eli felt the bond pulse like fire in his chest, stronger than ever. He didn't know what destiny had chosen him for, but he knew one thing. He wasn't turning back. The cavern lights dimmed to a faint blue glow, dust floating through the air like slow-moving stars. Eli and Lyra stood among broken statues and silent machines, the air thick with the weight of forgotten history. The hum of old energy filled the space, low and haunting, like the breath of something ancient waiting to be awakened. Lyra knelt beside an old pedestal covered in alien markings, her fingers brushing symbols that pulsed faintly under her touch. These are records from the first age, she whispered. Before the divide, before the war. Eli moved closer, his eyes drawn to the light, the same pulse that now ran through his own veins. He touched one of the glowing symbols, and the entire room came alive, walls flickering with streams of golden light. Shapes appeared, holograms of beings that looked both human and alien, tall, luminous, standing together under the same stars. Eli stared in shock. That's us. That's humanity. Lyra nodded slowly, her voice trembling. And that was unity. The projection spoke in a voice that was not one, but many, blending tones and languages. The bridge between heart and light must not fade, it echoed, for when fear divides, the stars will burn alone. Eli felt the words, not in his ears, but in his bones. They vibrated inside him. He stumbled backward, holding his head as voices whispered in his mind. Thousands of overlapping memories, laughter, battle cries, tears, love. Lyra rushed to him. Eli, what do you hear? He gasped. Voices. So many voices. They're speaking to me. Lyra's expression turned from fear to awe. The bond is opening the memory of the starborn. They are calling through you. Eli gritted his teeth, the whispers turning into visions. He saw Earth as it once was, oceans glowing with strange lights, ships of crystal and steel leaving orbit long before history recorded. He saw humans walking side by side with Alari, sharing cities, trading knowledge, building bridges of thought. And then he saw the end. Fire raining from the sky, betrayal, and silence. The last image burned into his mind. A woman of light, and a man of flesh holding hands as their world fell apart. Eli collapsed to his knees, sweat dripping down his face. They destroyed everything. Lyra knelt beside him, her voice soft and full of sorrow. Yes, and they swore it would never happen again. He looked up at her, his eyes glowing faintly with blue light. But why us? Why now? She hesitated. Because the thread always seeks balance. It awakens when the cycle begins again. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, dust falling from the ceiling, and the hum of engines roared above them. Lyra turned sharply, her eyes wide. They've found the entrance. Eli stood quickly. How much time do we have? Minutes, she said. Maybe less. He looked around the cavern and spotted an ancient core at the center. A huge crystal sphere half buried in the floor, glowing faintly. What is that? He asked. Lyra followed his gaze, her expression mixed with fear and hope. The heart of memory, the last living fragment of the first alliance. She stepped toward it carefully. It can store thought, emotion, and time. It can show us what truly happened. Eli walked beside her, the bond between them pulsing stronger than ever, their steps perfectly in sync. When their hands touched the crystal, the entire room blazed with golden light. Images flooded their minds, ancient cities rising above oceans, humans and Alari dancing under twin suns, sharing music, science, and love. But then came the fear, the council, the decrees, and the great separation. One image burned brighter than all others, an Alari queen holding a human child, whispering, "They will forget, but the blood will remember." The voice repeated softly, "The blood will remember." Eli opened his eyes, breathless. That's why the bond chose me. Lyra turned to him, realization dawning in her glowing eyes. You carry their blood, the blood of the first alliance. Eli took a shaky step back. That's impossible. We're from Earth. We never. But before he could finish, the cave walls erupted with explosions, shards of light scattering in all directions. A squad of Alari soldiers descended through the breach, their armor gleaming, weapons glowing with plasma light. Their leader stepped forward, his voice cold and sharp. By order of the High Council, you are under arrest for genetic corruption and spiritual treason. Eli's heart pounded. He reached for Lyra, pulling her behind him. Stay back, the commander sneered. How noble, the human thinks he can protect one of us. Lyra's eyes flared with light, her voice steady. He is not just human. The soldiers raised their weapons, beams of energy charging. Eli felt the bond react instinctively. Light exploded from his hands, forming a shield of pure energy that stopped the blast in midair. The soldiers stumbled back, shouting in shock. Lyra looked at him in disbelief. Eli, what did you do? He stared at his glowing hands, trembling. I don't know, it just happened. The commander roared. He carries forbidden power. End them both. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand, the bond burning like fire between them, and together they ran deeper into the ruins, the sound of weapons echoing behind them. As they escaped through an ancient corridor, Lyra looked back once more at the heart of memory, its glow fading slowly. She whispered, The ancients chose you, Eli Cross, and now their voices live again. He looked at her, his eyes still glowing faintly blue. Then I'll make sure their voices are heard. The tunnel lights flickered as they vanished into the shadows, the sound of the past whispering through the stone, and far above the Alari Council watched from orbit, realizing with fear that the bond between a human and an Alari had returned after 10,000 years. The twin suns of Virella rose above the horizon, painting the desert in gold and blue fire. Wind swept across the endless dunes, whispering through the bones of old cities buried beneath the sand. Eli and Lyra walked in silence, their footprints fading behind them, chased by the sound of distant thunder from the skies above. Far away, Alari ships circled like silver birds, searching for the fugitives who had broken the oldest law of the stars. Lyra's steps were light, almost floating, her pale skin glowing faintly under the rising light. Eli followed, exhausted but determined, his suit burned and torn, his eyes still glowing with the bond's strange energy. He had no idea where they were going, but Lyra walked as if the desert itself called her name. After hours of silence, he finally asked, "Where are we heading?" She turned her head slightly, her voice calm but sad. "To the ruins of the first city, the place where it all began." They reached a valley of black stone, half buried under golden sand. Broken towers pierced the ground like the ribs of a long-dead beast. Lyra knelt beside an ancient pillar marked with human and Alari symbols intertwined. She brushed the dust away gently, whispering, "This was my home." Eli stared in disbelief. "You lived here?" She nodded, her eyes shining faintly. "Not in this age, but in memory and blood. The Aelari remember what they destroyed, even if they pretend they don't." Eli looked around, feeling the air pulse with faint energy. The ground beneath them hummed like a beating heart, as if the desert itself was alive. Lyra closed her eyes and placed her hands on the sand, the light from her palms spreading outward in thin lines of blue. Ancient mechanisms responded, walls trembled, and the buried ruins began to awaken. Eli stepped back, his breath catching as massive stone arches rose slowly from beneath the dunes. Glowing with old light, a doorway appeared before them, covered in symbols that shimmered as if alive. Lyra whispered softly, "The Gate of Union, built by those who refused to forget the bond." Eli stared at it. "And it's been here all this time?" She nodded, hidden, waiting for the day the thread would awaken again. As they entered, the air grew cooler, the light dimmed, and the walls began to pulse in rhythm with their joined heartbeat. Strange patterns appeared, showing the history of the two species, humans and Aelari working side by side, then torn apart by lies and fear. Eli ran his hand along the carvings. "All this time, they erased everything." Lyra's voice echoed softly. "Yes, and they called it peace." They reached a chamber deep within the ruins, filled with floating crystals that glowed when they stepped inside. The crystals began to hum, reacting to their presence. Lyra looked at Eli with both fear and wonder. "The relics recognize you. They see your blood." He frowned. "What does that mean?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "You are one of them. The descendants of those who built the first alliance. The Starborn." Eli shook his head. "I'm just human," Lyra smiled faintly. "No, you are more than that now." The bond between them pulsed brighter. A thread of light connecting their hearts. Eli felt her emotions flow through him. Her sorrow, her memories, her hidden hope. He saw flashes of her past, her life as a palace servant, her fear of the council, her silent rebellion against the lies of her people, and she felt his, the loneliness of Earth's colonies, the longing for meaning, the small fire inside him that never gave up. Their thoughts touched like waves blending into one ocean, and for a moment they were one. Lyra gasped softly and stepped back. "The bond is growing, Eli. It's changing us." He looked at his hands, veins glowing like molten silver, his heartbeat syncing perfectly with hers. He said quietly, "Maybe it's not just changing us. Maybe it's fixing what was broken." Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the chamber, sand falling from the ceiling. Lyra turned sharply, her voice full of warning. "They're here." Aelari drones descended through the upper cracks, glowing eyes scanning the ruins. Eli grabbed a broken energy rod from the ground. Ready to fight, Lyra raised her hands, her body glowing with silver light. "No, don't fight them like a human. Fight them like what you are." The drones fired, beams of plasma cutting through the air. Eli raised his arm instinctively, and a wave of pure energy burst outward, disintegrating the first wave of drones instantly. Lyra's eyes widened, her voice filled with awe. "You command the bond now." Eli looked at his glowing arm, feeling the power hum like thunder inside his bones. "I didn't command it. It protected you." The remaining drones retreated, their transmissions sending signals to the orbiting council fleet. Lyra looked upward, worry clouding her features. "They will send soldiers next, and then the council itself." Eli turned toward her, determination burning in his voice. "Then let them come." Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. They won't just come for you, they'll come for Earth. For everyone with your blood. Eli froze, realizing the truth. They'll start another war. She nodded slowly. Unless we end the lie before they do. They stood together under the glowing ruins. Surrounded by ancient light, Eli looked around the chamber, eyes falling on an old beacon at its center, covered in dust but still pulsing faintly. He stepped forward. If this place holds the truth, then we need to show it to everyone. Lyra hesitated. You mean to activate the beacon? He nodded. Let them all see what their ancestors destroyed. Lyra stared at him for a long moment, her expression softening. You truly are human. Eli smiled faintly. You say that like it's a bad thing. She stepped closer, her glowing hand brushing his arm. No, Eli Cross. It is the most dangerous and beautiful thing in the universe. Outside, the sky darkened as Alari warships entered the atmosphere, their shadows falling over the desert. Eli placed his hand on the beacon's surface. Feeling its power merge with the bond, Lyra whispered a phrase in the old tongue. Let the stars remember. The beacon answered with a sound like thunder, sending a wave of golden light across the desert, a signal that would echo through every Alari world. The truth had awakened and the galaxy would never be the same again. The beacon's glow spread across the sky like sunrise after 1,000 years of night. Every tower, every city, every orbiting ship on Virella stopped as the wave of golden light washed over them. Eli and Lyra stood in the heart of the ancient ruins, their faces lit by the storm of memory now echoing through the stars. The beacon sang in a language older than both their worlds, words made of light and sound that touched every living mind. On the palace world above, the Alari Council watched in horror as forbidden images appeared in the air. Humans and Alari walking side by side, sharing laughter, love, and creation. The elder voices cried, impossible. The humans were never our equals, but the truth spoke louder. It could not be silenced anymore down on the desert. Eli felt the power of the beacon flow through him like fire and light joined together. Visions flooded his mind, stars being born, worlds rising and falling, and the memory of an ancient promise made by two hearts long forgotten. He fell to his knees, gripping the sand, his voice shaking. It's showing them everything. Lyra knelt beside him, her silver hair floating in the energy storm. Yes, every lie, every truth, every buried memory. Her body glowed brighter than ever before, energy flowing from her into the beacon like water into the sea. Eli realized she was giving her life force to power the broadcast. Lyra, stop, it's killing you. She looked at him with soft, glowing eyes. No, Eli, it's freeing me. He reached for her hand, gripping it tightly, feeling her pulse through the bond. The energy around them pulsed with their joined heartbeat, spreading faster and brighter, all across the galaxy. Alari minds felt emotions they had long buried, love, grief, compassion, and awe. For the first time in ages, they remembered what it meant to feel. But not everyone accepted the light. In the palace above, the High Chancellor of the Alari struck his staff against the floor, his voice thundering through the hall. Destroy the beacon. Before it corrupts the stars, warships descended, engines roaring, clouds burning as they fell through the atmosphere. Lyra opened her eyes, her voice quiet but full of power. They are coming. Eli stood, helping her to her feet. Then we show them what humans can do. He walked to the center of the ruins, where the beacon's control node floated like a glowing heart. The energy inside him surged, the bond between them burning with fierce golden light. Lyra stepped beside him, her hand on his chest. Eli, listen to me. The beacon responds to emotion. It was built by those who loved without fear. He nodded, breathing deeply. Then it will hear me. He closed his eyes, remembering every face he had ever known. The people of Earth, the workers in the palace, even the Alari who treated him like dust. He thought of Lyra, of the moment she changed, of how he couldn't look away because it wasn't just beauty he saw. It was truth. The beacon's light rose higher, waves of golden fire rolling across the desert sky. Ships appeared above them, their cannons glowing, their commanders shouting orders. Eli opened his eyes, glowing like stars, and whispered, If truth is treason, then let every lie burn. The first beam from the ships fired, tearing through the clouds. But before it reached the ground, the bond reacted. The light between Eli and Lyra exploded outward, creating a shield of pure memory, made from the voices of the ancients. The beam split and vanished like smoke. Lyra gasped. The bond is protecting itself. Eli looked at her, his voice calm. No, it's protecting the truth. The Elari soldiers on the ground hesitated, their armor flickering as they heard the whispers of the past. Human voices speaking in their minds. We were one once, remember? The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly, confusion and emotion breaking through their cold discipline. The Chancellor's voice screamed from the comms, "Obey your command." But the army did not move. Lyra stepped forward, her body surrounded by radiant silver light. She lifted her hand and spoke into the open air, her voice echoing through every ship, every channel, every mind. For 10,000 years, we buried love beneath fear. We erased the truth. We silenced the bond that made us whole. But no longer. Her light spread across the horizon, meeting the beacon's golden glow, merging into one color, the color of dawn. Eli felt his strength fading, his body trembling under the weight of power flowing through him. Lyra turned to him, her hand on his cheek, her voice soft. You did what no one else dared to do. You looked when others turned away. He smiled weakly. And I'd do it again. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his, their lights merging completely for a moment. The galaxy saw them, a human and an Elari standing together, their hearts one, their energy brighter than any sun. Then silence. The ship stopped firing. The council halls fell quiet, and across the stars, billions watched as the truth settled in their hearts. The light faded slowly, leaving behind calm wind and golden dust drifting through the air. Eli opened his eyes, the glow in his veins softer now. Is it over? Lyra smiled faintly, her voice a whisper. No, Eli Cross. It has just begun. High above the desert, the council ships withdrew, silent and shaken. They could not erase what had been seen. They could not silence what had been felt. For the truth had escaped the chains of history, and humanity's light had touched the stars again. The storm of light faded, leaving the desert in eerie silence. The sky shimmered with gold dust that slowly fell like rain. Glowing as it touched the sand, Eli stood weakly, his breath uneven, his body trembling from the power he had unleashed. Lyra stood beside him, her silver glow dim but steady, her face calm yet full of sorrow. Around them, the broken ruins of the old world glowed softly. Alive once more, the carvings of humans and Elari, once symbols of shame, now shone with sacred light. Eli turned slowly toward Lyra, his voice low and tired. Did we win? She shook her head gently. Truth does not win or lose, Eli. It only awakens in the distance. The Elari ships hovered silent, uncertain. The soldiers who once followed orders now knelt in confusion, their weapons lowered. Some wept. Others stared at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. The light had reached their hearts, and even the proudest could no longer pretend they felt nothing. Eli looked up at the sky, watching the ships pull back toward orbit. They're retreating. Lyra nodded, her voice soft. For now. But the council will not forget this. Eli frowned. Then we have to be ready, they'll come again. She looked at him, her eyes full of quiet sadness. They won't come for war, Eli. They will come for you. He didn't understand. For me? Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. You are living proof of what they fear most. That humans were never beneath them. That our blood once danced with yours. Eli laughed bitterly. So I'm a threat just for being alive? Lyra smiled faintly. No, you are a reminder. They stood together in the glow of the fading beacon, the desert wind moving softly around them. Eli could feel her heartbeat through the bond. Slow, steady, like a song echoing in his chest. He looked at her and whispered, What happens to us now? She hesitated, her voice trembling. The thread is complete, Eli. Our bond has reached its final stage. He frowned. Final? What does that mean? She closed her eyes, silver tears running down her cheeks. It means we cannot exist apart anymore. Our lives are one. The realization hit him like a wave. He reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. Then we stay together. Lyra shook her head slowly. It's not that simple. The balance between our energy and your human life cannot last. The bond burns brighter than time itself. It will consume us. Eli's voice cracked. There has to be a way to stop it. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with light. There is one way. If one of us breaks the bond willingly, the other will survive. He stared at her in disbelief. No, you're not doing that, Lyra smiled gently. You still don't understand, Eli. You were meant to live, to carry this truth to your people, to show them what we once were. He stepped closer, his voice fierce. I'm not leaving you. She touched his face, her hand glowing against his skin. You already gave me freedom. Ely Cross, I was born a servant of lies. But you saw me as more. The air around them shimmered again, the bond glowing brighter than ever before. It pulsed like a heartbeat between stars, and for a moment, both of them felt everything and every memory, every breath, every emotion they had shared. Ely whispered, "If this is what they fear, then they were right to be afraid." Lyra smiled through tears. Because love changes everything. Above them the clouds parted, and a massive ship descended, not the Council's warship, but a vessel older, larger, and more radiant than anything Ely had seen. Lyra looked up in awe, her voice trembling. The archive vessel. It was said to hold the memories of the first Alari Queen. The ship hovered silently above the desert, its light bathing them both. A voice echoed from the sky, soft and ancient. The bond has spoken again, the cycle begins anew. Ely looked up, shielding his eyes. Who are you? The voice replied, the memory of unity, the keeper of the flame. Lyra's light grew stronger, merging with the ship's golden glow. They are calling me, Ely. He grabbed her shoulders. Desperate. No, don't go. Not now. Her expression softened, her voice calm. This is not goodbye, it's return. I will live in the bond, in every mind that remembers us. The ground shook as the ship's light enveloped them both. Ely tried to hold on, but the energy lifted her higher, wrapping her in streams of golden wind. Lyra smiled down at him, tears glowing like stars. Thank you for looking when others turned away. Her body dissolved into light, merging with the vessel, disappearing into the sky. Ely fell to his knees, the world spinning, the bond's warmth fading slowly from his chest. He pressed his hand to the ground, whispering, You're still here. I can feel you. The beacon pulsed once. Faintly as if answering, the desert grew silent again, but the stars above shimmered brighter than ever before. On the horizon, a new dawn began. Ely stood slowly, his shadow stretching across the golden sand. He looked up at the glowing sky and whispered, Then I'll finish what we started. The light in his veins flared once more, not fading but transforming, a promise written in fire. And across the galaxy, humans and Alari looked toward the same sunrise. Two worlds once divided, now sharing the same heartbeat. The next dawn rose over the desert world of Virella, the sky glowing with soft gold where the light of the ancient beacon still lingered. Ely Cross stood alone at the edge of the dunes, the wind brushing against his worn suit, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the archive vessel had vanished into the stars. The silence was heavy, not empty but full, as if the world itself held its breath. Remembering, he could still feel her faintly, deep inside the bond that refused to die. A whisper in his heart that pulsed like a star far away. The Council had fallen silent since the day of light. Their fleets pulled back, their soldiers confused and frightened by what they had seen. Across the Alari Empire, old walls began to crack. Servants questioned orders. Scientists searched their archives for lost history. And the word unity spread like wind through fire, even on distant human colonies. Signals from the beacon had reached the deep networks. They saw the visions too. A man and a woman standing under alien skies, their hearts glowing like twin suns for the first time in centuries. Humans looked at the stars not with fear or ambition, but with longing and pride. Ely spent weeks wandering the ruins, following the traces of the ancient energy that Lyra had awakened. Each place he touched came alive again, as if her memory moved through him, guiding his every step. He found her symbol carved into a wall, a circle of light intertwined with a human hand. He traced it gently, whispering, You're still here, aren't you? The bond stirred faintly, a warm echo in his chest, her voice soft and distant. Always, Ely. I am the light between worlds, he smiled through tired eyes. Then we still have work to do. The ruins around him began to glow again. Responding to the spark within him, the sand shifted, revealing a hidden path that led deep underground. Ely followed the trail until he reached a vast chamber filled with dormant machines, ships, hundreds of them, sleek and elegant. A forgotten fleet built by both species long ago. Lyra's voice echoed faintly through the air. The fleet of dawn created to unite the lost colonies, but sealed when the war began. Ely ran his hand along one of the hulls, his heart pounding. Then it's time to wake them up. With every touch, the ships began to stir, glowing faintly with golden veins, their engines humming after thousands of years. Eli climbed into the central command vessel, the same design as the ancient archive ship. As he sat in the control chair, the system recognized him. Scanning his DNA, his neural pattern, and the trace of Alari energy within him, a voice echoed. Identity confirmed. Hybrid signature verified. Command accepted. Eli took a deep breath, whispering, "Let's finish this." Lyra, the fleet of dawn, rose from the desert, breaking through clouds of gold and blue across the world. People looked up as hundreds of lights ascended into the sky. Silent and bright, the Council's fleet waited in orbit, uncertain whether to attack or surrender. Eli opened the comm channel, his voice calm, echoing through every Alari ship. "My name is Eli Cross, and I carry the voice of those you tried to silence. The truth you buried and the bond you feared." He paused, the light from the ship's core reflecting in his eyes. "Humans never look away, but not from truth, not from love, not from the stars." His voice grew stronger, filled with both warmth and defiance. "We will not fight you. We will remind you. Because the war between heart and light ends today." For a long moment there was silence. Only the hum of energy and the beating of hearts shared across the bond that now connected worlds. Then one by one Alari ships powered down their weapons, their lights turning from red to white, the color of peace. The council chamber fell into stunned silence as the High Chancellor whispered, "He has become what we feared, a bridge." And somewhere in the void, Lyra's voice answered softly, "No, what you feared was love." Eli guided the fleet through the stars, heading toward the nearest human colony. As they passed through the thin rings of a glowing moon, he looked out the viewport, seeing Lyra's reflection in the starlight. Smiling, she whispered through the bond, "You kept your promise." He smiled faintly. "You showed me why it mattered." When the ships reached orbit above the first human world, the people below looked up in awe. They saw both human and Alari banners flying together, symbols of light, rebirth, and courage. The great divide that had lasted 10,000 years began to fade. One heartbeat at a time, Eli stood before the command console. Gazing out into the endless night, he whispered quietly to the stars. "They said humans don't look when others change. But maybe that's why we always change the universe." The fleet shimmered, engines igniting like sunrise across the dark, and in that light, brighter than war, deeper than time, the legend of Eli Cross and Lyra of Varela was born, a legend that would echo through galaxies, reminding all who heard it that humanity's greatest power was not its strength, but its heart, because when love called from the dark, humans never looked away.